She served coffee every day, just a waitress in a small café. But then a security guard called her Madam CEO and froze. Who was she, really? What did he know? As the mystery unfolds, a woman's hidden potential begins to everyone wondering, is she just a waitress or the mastermind behind a billion-dollar empire? Emily had always considered herself ordinary, a 25-year-old waitress working at a small café in the heart of the city, the kind of café where the clink of coffee cups and the rustle of menus blended into a background hum of everyday life. She wore her apron with pride, serving customers with a smile, never letting the monotony of the daily grind show. She had a small room in a building that seemed to be on the verge of falling apart, yet it was enough for her bed, a desk, and a closet. That was all she needed, or so she thought. But Emily had dreams, deep ones that she kept locked away, in the silence of her heart. She dreamed of owning her own bakery, where every cake told a story, every loaf of bread carried a memory. It wasn't just a fantasy, it was a vision she held close, knowing that one day the world would be ready to listen. But for now, she had to make ends meet. So she continued to wait tables, served coffee, and endured the long hours, believing that someday her time would come. One regular morning, as Emily was wiping down the counter after the morning rush, a man walked in. He was tall, dressed in a neat suit, but there was something about him that felt out of place in the cafe. He wasn't the type of customer to order a simple coffee and be on his way. His presence had an air of confidence, and yet there was a subtle uncertainty in his eyes. Emily, like any waitress, went to take his order, expecting it to be just another routine interaction. "Good morning, sir," she greeted with a warm smile. "What can I get for you today?" He glanced up at her, his eyes scanning her face for a moment before he responded. "I'll have a black coffee, no sugar, and a croissant." Emily nodded, turning to the kitchen, but as she did, something caught her eye. The security guard, a man who worked at the café's entrance, was staring at her. His face seemed frozen in disbelief. At first, Emily didn't think much of it. Security guards often stared, especially when they didn't recognize someone. But then she heard him mutter something under his breath, almost like he was talking to himself. "Madam CEO," he whispered. Emily stopped dead in her tracks. The words echoed in her mind, their meaning not registering at first. Did he just call her Madam CEO? She turned around slowly, her eyes searching his face for any sign of a joke, but there was none. The security guard's expression was serious, almost awestruck. Confused, Emily smiled awkwardly. "Sorry, what did you just say?" The guard seemed to snap out of his trance, blinking rapidly as though trying to clear his thoughts. I mean, it's just that. You look like someone else I know. Someone important," he stammered, visibly flustered. But Emily could tell something was off. She could see the way his gaze lingered on her, the way he seemed almost hesitant, as if expecting something from her. Her heart started to race, and she couldn't help but feel a flicker of discomfort. The man in the suit, who had been quietly observing this exchange, suddenly stood up from his seat. "Is everything okay here?" he asked, his voice smooth and composed, yet tinged with curiosity. Emily quickly brushed off the awkward moment with a polite smile. "Yes, everything's fine. Just a misunderstanding." The man nodded, but his eyes stayed fixed on her, a flicker of intrigue in them. "You sure? You don't look like a typical waitress." Emily chuckled nervously. "Well, I'm pretty typical, I assure you." But the man's gaze never wavered. There was something about the way he looked at her that made her wonder if there was more to this encounter than she understood. The guards seemed to have recovered, but his expression was still unreadable. He walked past Emily, his gaze lingering on her once more before he went back to his post. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something strange had just happened, but she didn't know what. Her mind raced, but she pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on her task. The man with the suit had returned to his table, and Emily served him his coffee and croissant with a forced smile. As she turned to walk away, she heard him say, "It's rare to see someone with such potential hiding in plain sight." The words hit her like a bolt of lightning. She froze for a second, her hand gripping the edge of the counter. She quickly recovered, smiled again, and walked away, but the words echoed in her mind. Could it be true? Could there be something more to her than what she had always believed? Was it possible that the life she dreamed of wasn't as far out of reach as she thought? The day passed like any other, but that moment, that simple exchange, lingered in Emily's mind long after the café had emptied. Little did she know, her life was about to change forever. The next day, Emily couldn't shake off the strange encounter with the security guard and the man in the suit. It had been an ordinary day, filled with the usual tasks, serving coffee, taking orders, and clearing tables. But something had shifted. Inside her, she couldn't explain it, but the words Madam CEO echoed in her mind like a constant hum. She was just a waitress, wasn't she? No one important, no one extraordinary. Yet, for some reason, that encounter made her question everything she knew about herself. Was there really more to her than she'd been willing to admit? As the café closed for the night, Emily lingered in the kitchen, cleaning up and trying to quiet the storm in her mind. She'd never been one to believe in signs or fate, but that man's words had struck a chord with her. She had always felt like she was destined for something bigger, something more meaningful, but she had buried that part of herself. Life had a way of making her focus on the day-to-day survival, the bills, the rent, the next meal. Yet, the possibility of something more, something beyond this life of waiting tables, had begun to haunt her. The next morning, as she made her way to the café, Emily noticed something different. There was a buzz in the air, an excitement that hadn't been there before. She couldn't put her finger on it. But as she walked past the street vendors and the crowd of commuters, she felt a surge of energy. It was like the city itself had shifted, and she was a part of something much bigger than she realized. When she arrived at the café, she was greeted by the usual hum of activity. The staff was busy preparing for the morning rush, and the customers were already filling the tables. But then she saw him again, the man in the suit. He was sitting at the same corner table, his eyes fixed on her as she walked through the door. This time, there was no awkwardness, no uncertainty in his gaze. It was as if he had been waiting for her. "Good morning," he said, his voice calm and collected. "I see you're back." Emily smiled nervously, unsure of what to say. "Here every day," she replied, trying to sound casual. "I work here." "Yes, but not for long," he said, his smile just a little too knowing. "You've got bigger things ahead of you, Emily." The way he said her name sent a chill down her spine. She didn't even know this man, yet he spoke to her like he knew her better than anyone else. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "What do you know about me?" He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. "I know that you've been stuck in this routine, but I also know that you're capable of more, much more. I know what you really want out of life. You've always wanted more, haven't you?" Emily was silent for a moment. She felt exposed, vulnerable. How could he know that? How could he possibly understand the yearning she had kept hidden from the world? She started, but before she could finish, the man interrupted her. I'm not here to make you uncomfortable. I'm here to offer you an opportunity, a chance to change your life, if you're willing to take it. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Emily felt her heart skip a beat. What kind of opportunity? She asked, her curiosity getting the better of her. Let me put it this way, he said, leaning forward slightly. I'm in charge of $1 billion company, and I'm looking for someone with your potential. Someone who's been underestimated, someone who hasn't had the chance to show the world what they're really capable of. You, Emily, could be that person. Emily's mind raced. $1 billion company. She blinked, trying to process what he was saying. This couldn't be real. She was just a waitress, right? Just someone who served coffee and wiped down tables. But the more she listened, the more the pieces began to fall into place. He wasn't joking. He wasn't even trying to sell her anything. He genuinely believed in her potential. I don't understand, Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. Why me? Why would someone like you want anything to do with me? The man smiled, his eyes gleaming with something Emily couldn't quite place. Because I see something. In you, Emily. I see the spark that's been hidden away for far too long. You have a vision, you have ambition, and I can help you turn that vision into reality. Emily felt her breath catch in her throat. This was insane. But deep down, she couldn't deny the pull, the temptation of a life she had only dreamed of. What do I have to do? She asked, her voice steady now. You don't have to do anything yet, the man replied. I just want you to think about it. I'll be here for the next few days. Let's see if you're ready to take the next step. With that, he stood up, gave her a polite nod, and walked out of the cafe, leaving Emily standing there, her mind reeling with the possibilities. Could this really be happening? Could she really be on the verge of something so big? The thought of it both terrified and exhilarated her. But one thing was for sure, her life was about to change, whether she was ready for it or not. The next few days passed in a blur. Emily found herself haunted by the man's words, replaying them over and over in her mind. She couldn't escape the thought that her life might actually change, that she could leave behind the life she had always known. But there was also fear, fear of the unknown, fear of stepping into a world that felt so far out of her reach. It was easier to stay in the comfort of the familiar, even if it was mundane and predictable. After all, she had never imagined herself as someone who could command the kind of power the man spoke of. She was just Emily, a simple waitress with big dreams, but no means of making them a reality. But those dreams, the ones she had buried, so deep inside her, kept calling her. The bakery, the sense of purpose, the vision she had kept hidden away for years. Could it be that this man, this stranger who saw something in her, could help her achieve that? It wasn't until the third day that Emily decided she couldn't ignore it any longer. She had to know more. She had to take the first step, even if it terrified her. She arrived at the cafe early that morning, her heart pounding in her chest. As she walked through the door, she saw him, again the man in the suit, sitting at his usual table, waiting for her. This time, there was no uncertainty in his eyes. He was calm, confident, as if he had been expecting her all along. She walked up to him, her hands trembling slightly. I've been thinking, she said, her voice steady but unsure. I don't know what you see in me, but I'm willing to listen. I need to know more." He smiled, a knowing smile that made Emily feel both nervous and excited. "I knew you'd come around," he said, his voice filled with quiet satisfaction. "Sit down, let's talk." Emily sat across from him, her mind racing. "So, what exactly are you offering me?" she asked, her voice more confident now. "I'm offering you a chance to change your life, Emily, a chance to take control of your future," he replied, his tone serious. "But it's not going to be easy. It's going to require hard work, dedication, and a willingness to step out of your comfort zone." Emily swallowed hard, trying to push the fear down. "What do I have to do?" The man leaned forward, his gaze intense. "First, you'll need to leave this job behind. You can't continue working here and expect to grow. You'll need to fully commit to what's ahead." Emily's heart skipped a beat. Leave the cafe, leave everything she had known. It felt impossible. But she knew deep down that she couldn't keep living this half-life, stuck in a job that didn't fulfill her, surrounded by people who didn't see her potential. "And then what?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then you'll start working with me. You'll join my company, and I'll train you. You'll learn everything there is to know about business, leadership, and what it takes to run a billion-dollar company. But it's not just about the money, Emily. It's about creating something that lasts, something that matters. I want to help you build your future." The man's words were like a lifeline thrown to her in the middle of a storm. It felt so surreal, so out of reach, and yet something in her stirred a hope, a flicker of excitement that maybe, just maybe, she could be more than just a waitress. "I don't know," Emily said, her voice faltering. "This is all so sudden. How do I know I can do it?" The man smiled, his eyes softening. "Because I believe in you, and I can see what you're capable of. All you need to do is take that first step." The room seemed to grow quieter as Emily thought about what he was saying. It felt like her entire life had led up to this moment. She had spent so many years waiting for the perfect opportunity, waiting for someone to give her a chance. And now, here it was, right in front of her. She could feel her fear rising, but alongside it, a new sense of determination began to form. She wasn't going to let this chance slip away. She wasn't going to let fear control her anymore. "I'll do it," Emily said, her voice steady. "I'll leave. I'll take the first step." The man nodded, a proud smile spreading across his face. "That's the spirit. You've just made the best decision of your life, Emily." The words felt like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. For the first time in years, she felt like she was making the right choice, like she was finally taking control of her future. But little did Emily know, this was just the beginning. What lay ahead would challenge her in ways she never imagined, but it would also push her to become someone she never thought she could be. As she walked out of the cafe that day, Emily felt a sense of freedom she had never known before. The world was suddenly full of possibilities, and she was ready to embrace it all. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of change. Emily had stepped away from the familiar, walked out of the cafe, and into a world that seemed as intimidating as it was exhilarating. Her life, once predictable, was now filled with meetings, lessons, and experiences that pushed her to the edge of her comfort zone. The man in the suit whose name was Marcus kept his promise. He didn't just offer her an opportunity, he threw her into the deep end, demanding the very best from her. At first, Emily struggled. Every day felt like an uphill battle. She was no longer just serving coffee or cleaning tables. Now, she was in charge of projects, dealing with high-level executives, and making decisions that could impact the future of a billion-dollar company. The pressure was suffocating at times. She doubted herself constantly. What if she wasn't cut out for this? What if she failed? But Marcus always believed in her, even when she didn't believe in herself. He pushed her harder, showed her the ropes, and helped her understand the intricacies of business in a way she never thought possible. She learned the value of leadership, the importance of decision-making, and the power of resilience. She became more than just an employee. She became an integral part of the company. As the days turned into weeks, Emily noticed a shift within herself. The quiet, unsure woman who had walked into Marcus's office that first day was no longer the same. She had grown stronger, more confident, more capable. She began to understand that her dreams weren't just fantasies, they were within her reach, and all she had to do was grab them. One evening, after a particularly challenging meeting with an investor, Marcus pulled her aside. "You did well today," he said, his voice steady but filled with pride. "You handled yourself like a leader." Emily smiled, though the exhaustion was evident on her face. "I still feel like a waitress sometimes," she confessed, "like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not." Marcus shook his head. "You're not pretending, Emily. You're growing into the person you were always meant to be. It's not about what you used to do. It's about what you're doing now. You're not just here by chance. You're here because you've earned it." Those words stayed with her long after that conversation. She wasn't pretending. She had earned her place in this world, and she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. As Emily continued to prove herself, the company began to see her in a new light. She wasn't just a newcomer anymore. She was a rising star, someone who had the potential to lead, to innovate, to make an impact. The more she succeeded, the more doors opened for her. She was given more responsibility, and soon Marcus began to trust her with decisions that once seemed too big for anyone her age. One day, after months of hard work, Marcus sat her down for a serious conversation. "Emily," he began, his voice more serious than usual, "I've been watching you closely. You've done everything I asked, and more. You've proven yourself in ways I didn't expect. I'm ready to offer you something big." Emily's heart raced. Was this it? The moment she had been working towards? "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to stay calm, though the excitement was bubbling inside her. "I'm offering you a partnership," Marcus said, his eyes fixed on hers. "You've shown me that you have the vision, the drive, and the capability to run this company. One day, I want you to be a part of the decision-making team, to have a say in where this company goes next." The words felt like a dream, a partnership in a billion-dollar company. It was everything Emily had ever wanted, and more. She had gone from a waitress in a small café to someone who had the power to shape the future of a global enterprise. But the offer didn't come without its challenges. There would be more pressure, more responsibility, and more sacrifices. Emily knew that the road ahead would be tough, but she was ready for it. She had come too far to turn back now. The transformation she had undergone wasn't just about her career, it was about her mindset. She had gone from someone who doubted her potential to someone who knew she could achieve anything. And now, as she stood at the crossroads of her life, ready to take the next big step, Emily realized that the woman who had once served coffee to strangers was no longer the same. She was a force to be reckoned with, a leader in her own right, ready to take on the world. The café, the apron, and the familiar routine now seemed like distant memories. a past that had shaped her but no longer defined her. She had become the woman she always dreamed of, being someone who wasn't afraid to take risks, to push herself beyond her limits, and to create something truly remarkable. As she walked into the office the next morning, ready to start this new chapter, Emily knew one thing for sure. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a CEO in the making, and the world was hers for the taking. The weeks turned into months, and with each passing day, Emily grew into her new role. The weight of her responsibilities as a partner in the company was not lost on her, but neither was the sense of fulfillment that came with it. She was no longer the woman who feared the future. She was the woman who shaped it. The transformation she had undergone was both internal and external. Her once timid demeanor had been replaced with a quiet confidence that commanded respect. Her decisions were no longer questioned. They were followed with enthusiasm. Her vision for the company was clear, and every move she made was a step toward creating something greater, something that would last for generations. But with success came challenges, greater risks, more difficult decisions, and the pressure to lead. Emily found herself in meetings with global investors, strategizing ways to expand the company's reach, negotiating deals that would shape the course of its future. Every move she made was scrutinized, every decision analyzed, but she was no longer intimidated. She had earned her place, and she was determined to make the most of it. One day, as she sat in her office, reviewing projections for the upcoming fiscal year, Marcus walked in. His presence was calm but commanding, and Emily looked up from her work, her eyes meeting his. "How's everything going?" he asked, his tone steady, as if he already knew the answer. Emily leaned back in her chair, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. "It's going well," she replied, her voice confident. "Better than I could have ever imagined." Marcus nodded, walking over to the window. "I knew you had it in you, Emily. I've watched you grow from that unsure waitress to the woman who is shaping the future of this company. I couldn't be prouder." Emily's heart swelled at his words, but she knew there was still more to do. She hadn't come this far to stop now. "Thank you, Marcus," she said, her voice full of gratitude. "But there's so much more to accomplish. I can feel it. This is just the beginning." "I know," he replied, "and I believe you're the right person to take us there. But I want to ask you something important. You've proven yourself as a leader, Emily. But do you think you're ready to lead the company fully, to step into the role of CEO?" The question hit her like a bolt of lightning. She had always known that the company's future would eventually fall into her hands, but now the reality of it was sinking in. She wasn't just a partner anymore. She was being asked to take the reins, to become the face of the company. She had dreamt of this moment, but now that it was here, doubt crept in. Was she truly ready? She had spent so long trying to prove herself, trying to escape the life she had once known. But now that she was on the cusp of achieving everything she had ever dreamed of, could she rise to the occasion? Marcus seemed to sense her hesitation. "You're ready, Emily. You've been ready for a long time. It's not about knowing everything. It's about believing in yourself. You've earned this, and you'll do great." Emily took a deep breath, her mind racing through the years of hard work, the countless challenges and the sacrifices she had made. She had come so far, from the quiet waitress to the woman who could lead $1 billion company. She had the vision, the drive, and the heart to make it happen. "I'm ready," she said, her voice steady and filled with conviction. "I'll take the lead." Marcus smiled, a proud glint in his eyes. "I knew you would." And just like that, Emily took her place at the helm of the company, stepping into the role of CEO with the same determination that had carried her this far. The transition was seamless, as if she had always been meant for this. She faced challenges. Of course, some expected, others that tested her in ways she hadn't anticipated, but through it all, she remained resolute. Emily had found her purpose, her place in the world. She wasn't just the CEO of a billion-dollar company. She was a symbol of possibility. She was living proof that no dream was too big, no background too insignificant to overcome. As the years passed, Emily's company flourished under her leadership. She expanded into new markets, created innovative products, and built a team of passionate individuals who shared her vision. But more than that, she inspired others. She showed people that no matter where you started, no matter what challenges you faced, you could rise. She had gone from a waitress to the CEO of a global enterprise, and now she was helping others find their own paths to success. One evening, as she sat in her office overlooking the city skyline, Emily reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She remembered the days when she served coffee to strangers, the moments of doubt and the fear of failure. But she also remembered the spark of ambition that had never left her. She had taken a leap of faith, and it had paid off in ways she could never have imagined. Emily had become more than just a business leader. She had become a beacon of hope for anyone who had ever felt invisible, anyone who had ever doubted their own potential. She had shown the world that with determination, hard work, and a little bit of courage, anything was possible. And as she looked out over the city, Emily knew that this was only the beginning. The future was hers to create, and she was ready to shape it, one bold decision at a time.